You know that moment when your whole world just stops? When everything you thought was solid just crumbles beneath your feet like sand? That's where Hannah Cole found herself on a cold, rainy Tuesday afternoon in Riverstone City, collapsed on the sidewalk, her 6-year-old son trembling in her arms, his small body burning with fever she couldn't afford to treat. The pavement was cold. So cold it seeped through her worn jeans, through her skin, straight into her bones. Rain poured down, soaking her hair, her clothes, mixing with the tears she'd been holding back for weeks. Noah's head rested against her chest, his breathing shallow and rapid, his little fingers clutching her jacket like she was the only solid thing left in the world. And maybe she was. For him, anyway. "Mama," he whispered, his voice so weak it broke her heart into smaller pieces than she thought possible. "I'm cold." Hannah pulled him closer, trying to shield him from the rain with her own body, even though she knew it was useless. They were both soaked. Both shivering. Both running out of time. "I know, baby," she whispered back, pressing her lips to his hot forehead. "I know. Just hold on. Just a little longer." But hold on to what? She didn't know anymore. It wasn't always like this. 6 months ago, Hannah had a life. Nothing fancy, nothing extraordinary, but it was hers. A small apartment on the edge of the city. A husband who kissed her goodbye every morning. A son whose laughter filled their tiny kitchen during breakfast. Simple happiness. The kind you don't appreciate until it's ripped away. She could still remember that morning. The morning Daniel left. She woke up to silence. That should have been her first clue. Daniel always woke before her, always had coffee brewing, always turned on the news too loud. But that morning? Nothing. Just eerie, heavy silence. Hannah dragged herself out of bed, rubbing sleep from her eyes, calling his name. "Daniel? Babe, you running late?" No answer. She walked to the closet. Half of it was empty. His suitcase, gone. His work clothes, gone. The watch his father gave him, gone. On the kitchen counter, next to the coffee maker that sat cold and unused, was his wedding ring. Just the ring. No note. No explanation. No goodbye. Hannah stood there for what felt like hours, staring at that little gold band, her mind refusing to process what her eyes were seeing. This didn't make sense. They'd had dinner together the night before. They'd talked about Noah's upcoming birthday. They'd been fine. Hadn't they? Her hands started shaking. She picked up her phone, dialed his number. Straight to voicemail. She tried again. And again. And again. "The number you are trying to reach is no longer in service." That's when the panic set in. That's when she started calling his work, his friends, his brother. That's when she learned the truth. Daniel was gone. And he wasn't coming back. Noah didn't understand at first. "Where's Daddy?" he asked that first morning, his little face scrunched up in confusion as he walked into the kitchen expecting pancakes and finding his mother sitting on the floor, crying. "Daddy had to go away for work, sweetheart," Hannah lied, her voice barely steady. "But he'll be back soon." Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. And every single night, Noah asked the same question. "Is Daddy coming home today?" And every single night, Hannah smiled through tears and said, "Not today, baby. But soon." She didn't know what else to say. How do you tell a 6-year-old that his father abandoned him? That he chose to disappear rather than stay? That some people just leave? You don't. You protect them as long as you can. Even when you're falling apart yourself. The bills came first. Rent. Utilities. Noah's school fees. Car payment. Phone bill. They piled up on the counter like silent accusations, each read, final notice, stamped screaming louder than the last. Hannah had been a stay-at-home mom. It was something she and Daniel had agreed on. She'd take care of Noah, especially after he was born premature and needed extra attention. She'd planned to go back to work eventually, maybe when Noah started first grade. She'd been a graphic designer before, freelance work here and there. But now? Now she had no recent portfolio. No current clients. No network. No time to build one. She applied everywhere. Coffee shops. Retail stores. Cleaning services. Anywhere that would take her. Rejection after rejection. "We'll keep your resume on file. We're looking for someone with more recent experience. We'll be in touch." Nobody ever was. The savings Daniel left behind, because yes, he'd been thoughtful enough to clean out their joint account, lasted 3 weeks. 3 weeks of juggling bills, of choosing between electricity and groceries, of watering down Noah's juice to make it last longer. Then came the friends. Or rather, the absence of them. Sarah, her best friend since college, stopped returning calls. The moms from Noah's school suddenly had very busy schedules. The neighbors who used to chat with her in the hallway now avoided eye contact. At first, Hannah thought she was being paranoid. Then she overheard them. She was at the grocery store, trying to calculate if she could afford bread and peanut butter, when she heard familiar voices in the next aisle. "Did you hear about Hannah Cole? Her husband just left her. Vanished." "Oh, I heard. Honestly? I'm not surprised. I always thought there was something off about her. Right? I mean, what kind of woman drives her husband away like that?" "Exactly. She must have done something." Hannah stood frozen, her hand gripping the shopping cart so hard her knuckles turned white. She wanted to march around that corner and scream at them. Defend herself. Tell them they had no idea what they were talking about. But she didn't. Because deep down, a terrible part of her wondered if they were right. If somehow, this was her fault. She left the store without buying anything. She couldn't afford it anyway. Family was worse. Her mother called once. Just once. "Hannah, honey, I heard about Daniel. I'm so sorry." For one beautiful moment, Hannah thought she'd have support. Someone in her corner. Then her mother continued. "But sweetheart, you have to ask yourself, what did you do to push him away? Men don't just leave happy homes. Maybe you weren't paying enough attention to him. Maybe you were too focused on Noah. You know how men can feel neglected." Hannah hung up. She never called back. Daniel's family blamed her too. His mother sent one text, "You never deserved my son. I hope you're happy now." Happy? She almost laughed. Almost. Hunger became routine. Hannah learned to stretch a single can of soup into 2 meals. 3, if she ate less. She gave Noah the bigger portions, always, watching him eat while her own stomach cramped and growled. "Mama, aren't you hungry?" Noah asked one night, his innocent eyes watching her push food around her plate without eating. "No, baby. Mama already ate," she lied, her smile feeling like it might crack her face in half. She sold her laptop. Her grandmother's necklace. The coffee table Daniel's parents gave them as a wedding gift. Anything that wasn't essential, anything that might bring in a few dollars. Pride was a luxury she couldn't afford anymore. One afternoon, she went to the corner store where she'd shopped for years. Mr. Chen, the owner, knew her. Knew Noah. Had always been kind. She gathered the bare essentials, milk, bread, eggs, and brought them to the counter, her hands shaking as she pulled out her nearly maxed credit card. Declined. "Oh. Can you try again? Maybe it's just." Declined. Mr. Chen's face was apologetic but firm. "I'm sorry, Hannah. I can't extend any more credit. You still owe from last month." Behind her, the line was growing. People shifting impatiently. Someone sighed loudly. Hannah's face burned with shame. I understand. Mama?" Noah tugged her sleeve, looking up at her with confused eyes. "Can't we get the milk?" She wanted to die right there. Just disappear into the floor. "Not today, sweetheart," she whispered, abandoning the items and rushing out of the store, Noah's small hand in hers, tears streaming down her face. That night, Noah had cereal with water. He didn't complain. He was 6 years old, and he didn't complain. Hannah cried herself to sleep, hating herself more than she'd ever hated Daniel. Then Noah got sick. It started with a cough. Just a small one. Hannah told herself it was nothing. Just a cold. It would pass. But it didn't pass. It got worse. The cough became constant. His forehead grew hot. His energy disappeared. He stopped playing, stopped smiling, just lay on the couch with glassy eyes and labored breathing. "Mama, my throat hurts," he whispered one morning, and when Hannah looked, it was red and swollen. She needed medicine. She needed a doctor. She needed things she couldn't afford. She called the free clinic across town. The next available appointment was in 2 weeks. 2 weeks? "My son is 6 and he has a fever of 102. He needs to be seen today." "I'm sorry, ma'am. We're completely booked. You can try the emergency room." The emergency room. Where they'd ask for insurance she didn't have. Where they'd send her a bill she could never pay. Where her desperation would be documented and judged and added to the growing pile of evidence that she was failing as a mother. But what choice did she have? That's how she ended up on that rainy street. Walking to the bus stop because she'd sold the car 2 months ago. Carrying Noah because he was too weak to walk. Slipping on wet pavement because her shoes had holes in the soles. Falling. Collapsing. And just giving up. For one terrible, honest moment, Hannah gave up. She sat there on that cold, wet sidewalk, holding her sick son, and thought, "I can't do this anymore. I can't. I've tried everything and it's not enough and I don't know what else to do." People walked past. Some stared. Most didn't. The world kept moving while hers fell completely apart. "I'm sorry," she whispered to Noah, her tears mixing with the rain. "I'm so sorry, baby. Mama tried. I tried so hard." Then she heard footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming closer. "Ma'am? Are you all right?" Hannah looked up through the rain, through her tears, and saw him. A man in an expensive suit, completely out of place on this broken-down street. Tall, maybe 40, with kind eyes and an umbrella he held over himself but was now angling toward her. His shoes were polished. His watch probably cost more than her rent. "I'm fine," she lied automatically, trying to stand, trying to maintain some shred of dignity. She wasn't fine. They both knew it. "Let me help you," he said simply. Not a question. A statement. Before Hannah could protest, he was crouching down beside her, checking Noah's forehead with gentle fingers, his expression shifting to concern. "This child has a high fever. We need to get him somewhere warm. Immediately. I'm taking him to the clinic, The clinic is 2 miles from here and you can barely stand. Please. Let me help." There was something in his voice. Not pity exactly. Something else. Something that made Hannah's defenses crack just a little. "I don't have money to pay you," she whispered, ashamed. "I didn't ask for money," he replied. "My name is Lucas Gray. And right now, your son needs medicine and warmth. Everything else can wait." What happened next felt like a dream. Lucas called a car, an actual car service, not an Uber, and within minutes they were inside, warm air blasting, Noah wrapped in a blanket that appeared from nowhere. They drove to a pharmacy where Lucas went in and came back with bags of medicine, fever reducers, antibiotics. "How did you get antibiotics without a prescription?" Hannah asked, bewildered. "I know people," was all he said. Then he took them to a hotel. Not a motel. A hotel. The kind with a doorman and a lobby chandelier and rooms that probably cost more per night than Hannah's monthly rent used to be. "I can't afford." "You're not paying," Lucas interrupted gently. "Please. Just rest. Take care of your son. Everything is handled." He left them at the door to a beautiful room with 2 beds, a bathroom bigger than Noah's bedroom, and thick, soft towels Hannah wanted to cry into. "Why are you doing this?" she called after him. Lucas paused, turned back, and gave her a small, mysterious smile. "Because someone did it for me once. When I had nothing. And they told me to pass it forward when I could." He hesitated, then added, "Rest well, Hannah. You're stronger than you think." Then he was gone. Hannah stood there, Noah in her arms, surrounded by luxury she hadn't experienced in months, medicine that would save her son, kindness she didn't understand. She gave Noah the medicine, tucked him into the soft bed, and watched his breathing slowly, finally ease. Then she sat on the floor and cried. Not from despair this time. From hope. Fragile, terrifying hope. 3 days later, Lucas Gray disappeared. He'd paid for the hotel room for a week. Left money for food. But when Hannah tried to find him, to thank him, he was gone. No number. No address. Like he'd been an angel passing through. Hannah tried to move forward. Tried to be grateful and forget and keep surviving. Then, exactly 1 week after their meeting, an envelope arrived. Thick, expensive paper. Her name written in elegant script. Inside was a single card with an embossed address and 1 sentence. "Miss Cole, I have a proposition for you. Please visit at your earliest convenience. LG." At the bottom was an address. Hannah looked it up. It was an estate on the wealthy side of town. The kind of place she'd only ever seen in magazines. Her hands trembled as she held that card. Part of her screamed to throw it away, to not trust anything that seemed too good to be true. But another part, the desperate, tired, out-of-options part, whispered, "What if this is your chance? What if this is the miracle you've been praying for?" She looked at Noah, finally healthy again, playing with the toy truck Lucas had somehow thought to include with the medicine. She had no idea that walking through those gates would change everything. But not in the way she expected. The gates were massive. That was Hannah's first thought as she stood outside the estate, Noah's hand gripped tightly in hers, staring up at ornate iron scrollwork that probably cost more than every possession she'd ever owned combined. She'd taken 2 buses to get here. Changed Noah's shirt 3 times, trying to find one without stains. Brushed her hair until it looked almost presentable. Practiced what she'd say 100 times on the ride over. None of it prepared her for this. "Mama, is this a castle?" Noah whispered, his eyes wide as he took in the manicured gardens, the fountain in the circular driveway, the mansion that sprawled behind the gates like something out of a fairy tale. "No, baby," Hannah whispered back. "Just a very big house. A very big house where someone very important wanted to see her." Why? She still didn't know. And that uncertainty made her stomach twist with anxiety. Before she could second-guess herself and leave, an intercom crackled to life. "Miss Cole. Please, come in. Mr. Gray is expecting you." The gates swung open silently, like they'd been waiting for her all along. The walk up the driveway felt endless. Every step, Hannah fought the urge to turn around and run. She didn't belong here. Look at her shoes, worn through at the heels. Look at her jacket, frayed at the cuffs. Look at her life, falling apart at the seams. What could Lucas Gray possibly want with someone like her? The front door opened before she could knock. A kind-faced woman in a simple dress smiled warmly. "Miss Cole, welcome. I'm Maria, Mr. Gray's housekeeper. Please, come in." The entryway alone was bigger than Hannah's entire apartment. Marble floors. A chandelier that caught the light and scattered it like diamonds. A staircase that curved up to a second floor she couldn't even fully see from where she stood. "Whoa," Noah breathed, and despite her anxiety, Hannah almost smiled. "Mr. Gray is in his study. This way, please." They followed Maria through hallways lined with artwork, real artwork, not prints from Target, past rooms filled with furniture that looked both expensive and comfortable, the kind of lived-in luxury that spoke of old money and good taste. Hannah's heart pounded harder with each step. Finally, Maria stopped at a set of double doors, knocked gently, then opened them. "Miss Cole, sir." "Thank you, Maria." And there he was. Lucas Gray, standing by a window that overlooked gardens so perfect they looked painted. He turned as they entered, and that same kind smile from the rainy street spread across his face. "Hannah. I'm so glad you came." He looked down at Noah. "And you must be Noah. Feeling better, I hope?" Noah nodded shyly, pressing against Hannah's leg. "Much better, thanks to you," Hannah said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Mr. Gray, I came to thank you properly. For the medicine, the hotel, everything. I don't know how I'll ever repay." "Please, sit," Lucas interrupted gently, gesturing to comfortable chairs near a fireplace that crackled with warmth. "And you don't owe me anything. That was a gift, freely given." Hannah sat, her back straight, her guard up. "Then why did you ask me to come here?" Lucas settled into the chair across from her, his expression thoughtful. "Because I'd like to offer you something. An opportunity." Here it comes, Hannah thought. The catch. The price. Nothing is ever really free. "I don't understand," she said carefully. "It's quite simple. I need someone to make a delivery for me. A package. It needs to go from here to an address across town. No questions asked. No details required. You pick it up, you drop it off, you come back. For this, I'll pay you $5,000. The number hit Hannah like a physical blow. $5,000. That was months of rent. Food for Noah. Medicine if he got sick again. A buffer between them and the streets. $5,000, she repeated, certain she'd heard wrong. For one delivery? One delivery, Lucas confirmed. This afternoon, if you're available. Hannah's mind raced. This was too much money for such a simple task. Way too much. Which meant it wasn't simple at all. "What's in the package?" she asked. "I'm afraid I can't tell you that." "Is it legal?" Lucas smiled. "An excellent question. That's exactly what you should be asking." But he didn't answer it. Red flags were waving in Hannah's mind. Every instinct, every warning she'd ever heard about things that seemed too good to be true, was screaming at her to walk away. But $5,000. She thought about the eviction notice she'd received yesterday. The final one. 30 days to vacate or the sheriff would remove them by force. She thought about Noah's empty school lunch account, how she'd been packing him crackers and calling it lunch. She thought about the power company's threat to disconnect service. She thought about survival. "Why me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't know me. Why would you trust me with this?" Lucas leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his gaze steady and searching. "Because 3 days ago, I watched you collapse in the rain, protecting your son with your own body. I watched you refuse to leave him even when you could barely stand. I saw a mother who would do anything for her child." He paused. "That's the kind of person I need for this job." It made sense. Terrible, perfect sense. A mother desperate enough to do anything. A woman with nothing to lose. Someone who needed money so badly she wouldn't ask too many questions. Hannah looked down at Noah, who was studying a chess set on a nearby table with fascination. His innocent face. His trust in her. His belief that Mama could fix anything. What kind of example would she be setting if she took this offer? "Can I think about it?" she asked. "Of course. But I need an answer today. The package needs to be delivered by 6 o'clock. Hannah checked her watch. It was just past 2. 4 hours to decide if she would compromise everything she'd taught her son about honesty and integrity. 4 hours to choose between survival and her soul. Lucas must have seen the war playing out on her face. "Maria," he called. "Would you mind showing Noah the gardens? I believe the koi pond might be interesting to a young man his age." Noah looked up at Hannah hopefully. "Can I, Mama?" She wanted to say no. Wanted to keep him close. But she also needed to think, and she couldn't do that with his hopeful eyes on her. "Stay with Maria. Don't touch anything. And stay where I can see you from the window. I will. Noah jumped up, took Maria's offered hand, and practically skipped out of the room. As soon as the door closed, Hannah turned back to Lucas, her desperation finally breaking through her careful control. I need to know what's in the package. Please. I need to know what I'd be carrying. Lucas studied her for a long moment. What do you think is in it? I don't know. Drugs? Money? Something illegal, because why else would you pay so much for a simple delivery? And if it is something illegal? If it's something that could get you in serious trouble? Would you still do it? For $5,000? To keep a roof over your son's head? The question hung in the air like a blade. Would she? Hannah closed her eyes. In her mind, she saw the eviction notice. Saw Noah's face when she told him they might have to sleep in a shelter. Saw herself begging on street corners, dignity gone, pride shattered, reduced to a cautionary tale people whispered about. She saw the package. Imagined herself picking it up, not asking questions, driving across town, dropping it off, collecting her money. Simple. Easy. Over in an hour. She saw $5,000 in her hand. Rent paid. Food in the cupboard. Noah safe and warm and fed. Then she saw something else. She saw Noah 10 years from now, 15, 20. Saw him facing his own impossible choice. Saw him remembering this moment, when his mother chose the easy way out. When she taught him that integrity was negotiable. That right and wrong depended on how desperate you were. She saw the kind of man he might become if she showed him that shortcuts were acceptable when things got hard. And suddenly, $5,000 didn't seem like nearly enough. Hannah opened her eyes. No, she said quietly. Lucas raised an eyebrow. No. I won't do it. Her voice grew stronger. I don't know what's in that package, and maybe it's completely harmless, maybe I'm being paranoid. But I can't take that risk. Not for any amount of money. Even though you're being evicted? Hannah's breath caught. How did you? I did my research, Hannah. I know about the eviction. I know you have 30 days. I know you haven't eaten a full meal in weeks. I know you sold your wedding ring for grocery money. His voice was gentle, not judgmental. I know how desperate you are. So I'll ask again, are you sure you want to say no? Tears burned in Hannah's eyes. My son is watching me. Maybe not right now, but always. He's watching to see what kind of person I am. What kind of person he should be. She wiped her eyes roughly. I can't teach him to survive by abandoning everything I want him to believe in. I can't. Even if it costs us everything. Her voice broke on the last word, but she meant it. God help her, she meant it. For a long moment, Lucas just looked at her. His expression was unreadable. Then he smiled. Not a small smile. A wide, genuine, radiant smile. You passed, he said simply. What? Lucas stood, walked to his desk, and picked up a folder. There is no package, Hannah. There never was. This was a test. The room seemed to tilt. A test? I run a charitable foundation. We help families in crisis, single mothers, specifically. Women who are struggling, who need support, who need someone to believe in them. He opened the folder, and Hannah could see documents, contracts, official-looking papers. But I learned long ago that money alone doesn't solve problems. Character does. Integrity does. So before I offer anyone a position with my foundation, I test them. Hannah couldn't breathe. A position? The offer was designed to be almost irresistible. Easy money for a simple task. Most people in your situation would take it without question. They'd justify it, rationalize it, convince themselves it was fine. He looked at her with something that might have been pride. You didn't. Even when you knew what it would cost you. Even when I showed you I knew exactly how desperate you were. You chose character over comfort. I don't understand, Hannah whispered, her mind reeling. I want to offer you a job, Hannah. A real one. Working at my foundation, helping other women in situations like yours. Connecting them with resources, coordinating support programs, being living proof that there's a way forward. He handed her the folder. The salary is $45,000 a year to start, with benefits, health insurance, and childcare assistance. The position is yours if you want it. Hannah stared at the folder like it might disappear if she touched it. This is real? Completely real. I've been searching for someone like you for 6 months. Someone who understands real struggle. Someone with genuine empathy. Someone who can look desperate people in the eye and not judge them, because you've been there. Lucas's voice softened. Someone who would choose their principles over their survival. That's rare, Hannah. Precious rare. She opened the folder with shaking hands. Employment contract. Benefits package. Start date next Monday. I look for people who choose character over comfort, Lucas continued. Because those are the people who change lives. Including their own. Why didn't you just offer me the job? Hannah asked, tears streaming down her face now. Why the test? Why put me through that? Because I needed to know who you really are. Not who you present yourself to be. Not who you try to be. Who you are when everything is on the line and no one would blame you for taking the easy path. He smiled. You're exactly who I thought you were. Who I hoped you were. Through the window, Hannah could see Noah laughing as he watched the koi fish, his whole face lit up with joy. Safe. Happy. Trusting that his mother would find a way. And she had. Not by compromising. Not by taking shortcuts. By being exactly the person she wanted him to become. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I want the job. Then welcome aboard, Lucas said, extending his hand. You start Monday. We'll get you set up with an advance to handle your immediate expenses, your rent, Noah's school fees, whatever you need. Consider it a signing bonus. Hannah shook his hand, and for the first time in 6 months, she felt something she'd almost forgotten. She felt hope. Real, solid, unshakable hope. The next few months passed like a beautiful dream. Hannah threw herself into the work. She met with families in crisis, connected them with resources, held their hands through the darkest moments, and showed them, just by existing, that survival was possible. That rebuilding was possible. She was good at it. Better than good. She understood the shame, the fear, the desperate calculations these women made every day. She'd lived it. And that authenticity, that genuine empathy, made all the difference. Her first paycheck made her cry. She deposited it at the bank, stared at the balance, and couldn't quite believe it was real. Rent paid. Groceries bought without anxiety. Noah's school fees covered. She bought him new shoes. Real ones, from an actual store, that fit properly and didn't have holes. He wore them every day for a week straight, so proud he refused to take them off even to sleep. Their apartment filled with light again. Not because they moved, they couldn't afford that yet, but because hope had come back. Laughter had come back. Noah played and smiled and stopped asking when Daddy was coming home. Hannah's confidence returned slowly, like a timid animal emerging from hiding. She started standing straighter. Speaking up in meetings. Offering ideas. Lucas encouraged every bit of it, mentoring her, showing her she had value beyond just her suffering. You have a gift, he told her one afternoon as they reviewed applications for the Foundation's programs. You see people. Really see them. That's not something you can teach. I just remember what it felt like, Hannah said quietly. To be invisible. To have everyone look through you like you don't exist. I don't ever want anyone to feel that way if I can help it. Exactly, Lucas smiled. That's why you're here. Then, for months into her new life, Daniel came back. Hannah was at home, making dinner, real dinner, with vegetables and protein and everything, when someone knocked on the door. She opened it without thinking, and there he was. Older. Thinner. Wearing the same jacket he'd left in. Looking at her with eyes that held something between regret and entitlement. Hey, hon, he said, like he'd just been gone for the weekend. Like he hadn't abandoned them. Like her entire world hadn't collapsed because of him. Daniel. Her voice was flat. Empty of everything she'd once felt for this man. Can I come in? No. He blinked, surprised. The old Hannah would have let him in immediately, desperate for explanations, for apologies, for any scrap of attention. This Hannah was different. Come on, hon. Don't be like that. I made a mistake, okay? I was confused, I panicked, Where were you? She interrupted. Where were you when Noah was sick and I had no money for medicine? Where were you when we were being evicted? Where were you when your son cried himself to sleep asking when his daddy was coming home? Daniel had the decency to look ashamed. I know I messed up. I know. But I'm back now. I want to make it right. I want my family back. Your family? Hannah almost laughed. You gave up your family when you took off your ring and disappeared. We're not your family anymore, Daniel. We're mine. That's not fair. I have rights. Noah is my son. Then where have you been? Her voice rose, all the anger and pain she'd been holding finally breaking free. You have rights? You want to talk about rights? You left us with nothing. You took the money, you vanished, you let us starve. Don't you dare stand here and talk to me about rights. Daniel's expression shifted. The regret faded. Something harder took its place. I'm not asking, Hannah. I'm telling you. I'm moving back in. This is still my apartment, my name is on the lease. And I'm taking my son back. Fear shot through her. He was right about the lease. She'd never gotten around to getting his name removed. Legally, he could. No, she wasn't that helpless woman anymore. Get off my doorstep, she said quietly. Or I'll call the police. On what grounds? I didn't do anything illegal. I'm allowed to come back to my own home. For abandonment. For child endangerment. For every single law you broke when you left a 6-year-old child without support. She pulled out her phone. Try me, Daniel. Please. Try me. They stared at each other, and Hannah saw the moment he realized she meant it. That she wasn't bluffing. That she would fight him with everything she had. You've changed, he said, and it wasn't a compliment. Yes, Hannah agreed. I had to. Because you left me no choice. He came back the next day with threats. Called her a bad mother. Said he'd take Noah away. Said he'd tell everyone what kind of woman she really was. Said he'd make her life hell. Hannah called Lucas. Within 24 hours, she had a lawyer. A good one. One who specialized in family law and had a reputation for eating men like Daniel for breakfast. Within a week, she had a restraining order. Within a month, Daniel's parental rights were contingent on him proving he could maintain stable employment and housing for 6 consecutive months, paying back child support, and completing a parenting course. He never showed up to the first hearing. Hannah heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd moved to another state, chasing some new opportunity, some new life where he could pretend the past didn't exist. She hoped he found what he was looking for. But she no longer cared either way. He had no power over her anymore. A year after that rainy day on the sidewalk, Hannah stood in front of a room full of women. They were all like her. All struggling. All desperate. All wondering if they'd survive. I know what you're feeling, she told them, her voice steady and sure. I know the fear. The shame. The voice in your head that says you're not good enough, not strong enough, not worth saving. I know what it's like to have nothing. To be nothing in everyone else's eyes. She paused, looking at each face, seeing her past self reflected back at her. But here's what I learned. You are not your circumstances. You are not your worst day. You are not the sum of everything that's been taken from you. Her voice strengthened. You are what you do when everything falls apart. You are the choices you make when no one would blame you for giving up. You are the integrity you keep when it costs you everything. A woman in the back raised her hand, her voice shaking. But how? How do you keep going when you have nothing left? Hannah smiled. You find one thing worth protecting. One person worth staying strong for. For me, it was my son. For you, it might be your kids, or your dreams, or just the person you want to become. You hold on to that. And you refuse to compromise it. Even when the world offers you easy outs. Even when shortcuts would solve everything. Even when no one would know. Why? Another woman asked. Why does it matter if no one would know? Because you would know, Hannah said simply. And in the end, you're the one you have to live with. You're the one who has to look in the mirror. You're the one your children will model themselves after. She paused. I could have taken an easy $5,000 once. It would have solved all my problems. But it would have cost me something I couldn't afford to lose, my ability to look my son in the eye and tell him to do the right thing. She told them about Lucas's test. About the choice she'd made. About what came after. The greatest blessings, she said, often come disguised as tests. Tests that reveal not what you have, but who you are. And who you are matters more than anything else. Because everything else, money, security, stability, can be taken away. But your character? That's yours. No one can take it unless you give it away. After the meeting, a young woman approached her. She couldn't have been more than 25. Holding a baby. Eyes red from crying. Miss Cole? I don't think I can do this. I'm not as strong as you. Hannah took her hands gently. I wasn't strong either. I was terrified. I am still terrified sometimes. But here's the secret, you don't have to be strong all the time. You just have to be strong in the moments that matter. The moments when you choose who you're going to be. What if I choose wrong? Then you choose again tomorrow. And the next day. And the day after that. You keep choosing until choosing right becomes easier than choosing wrong. Hannah squeezed her hands. And you're not alone. None of you are alone anymore. That's why we're here. The woman's tears spilled over, but she was smiling. Thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to ask for help. That's the hardest part. That night, Hannah tucked Noah into bed. He was 7 now. Growing so fast it made her heart ache. Smart. Kind. Happy. Mama, he said sleepily. My teacher asked us today what our moms do for work. I told her you help people. Was that right? Hannah's throat tightened. Yes, baby. That's exactly right. She asked how. I said I don't really know, but I know you're really good at it. He yawned. Are you? I try to be. You are, he said with the absolute certainty only children possess. You're the best at everything. She kissed his forehead, breathing in the scent of his shampoo, marveling at this perfect human she'd somehow managed not to completely mess up. I love you, Noah. Love you more, he mumbled, already half asleep. Hannah turned off the light and stood in the doorway for a moment, watching him breathe, remembering the scared, sick little boy who'd shivered in her arms on that rainy street. So much had changed. Everything had changed. A few weeks later, Hannah ran into Sarah. Her former best friend. The one who'd stopped returning calls. The one who'd whispered with the other mothers about what Hannah must have done to drive her husband away. They nearly collided in the grocery store, the same one where Hannah had once been humiliated, unable to pay for milk. Sarah's eyes went wide. Hannah. Oh my God. How are you? Hannah could have been cold. Could have walked past without speaking. Could have made Sarah feel even a fraction of the pain her abandonment had caused. But she didn't. I'm good, Sarah. Really good, actually. I heard you're working for that charitable foundation. The Gray Foundation? Assistant director now, actually. Hannah couldn't quite keep the pride out of her voice. Sarah's face crumpled. Hannah, I'm so sorry. I should have been there for you. When everything happened with Daniel, I didn't know what to say. I was a terrible friend. The old Hannah would have made her grovel. Would have needed the apology, the acknowledgement, the validation. This Hannah just felt tired. Tired of carrying anger around. Tired of letting the past define her present. It's okay, she said, and meant it. It was a hard time. People handle hard things differently. It's not okay. I abandoned you when you needed me most. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. Can you forgive me? Hannah thought about it. Really thought about it. Yes, she said finally. I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, though maybe you do. But because I deserve peace. I deserve to let go of the anger. I deserve to move forward. Sarah hugged her, and Hannah hugged back, feeling something heavy lift from her shoulders. Forgiveness wasn't about other people, she realized. It was about refusing to let them occupy space in your heart they no longer deserved. 2 years after she started working at the foundation, Lucas called Hannah into his office. Close the door, he said, and his serious tone made her nervous. Is something wrong? Wrong? No. Very right, actually. He gestured for her to sit. Hannah, you've exceeded every expectation I had. The programs you've developed, the families you've helped, the team you've built, it's remarkable. Thank you, but I'm retiring, he said simply. Hannah's heart dropped. What? No. You can't. The foundation needs you. I need you. The foundation needs someone who understands its mission from the inside out. Someone who's lived it. Someone who can lead with empathy and strength in equal measure. He smiled. The foundation needs you, Hannah. As its director. She stared at him. Director? Lucas, I can't. You can. You will. The board has already approved it. He pushed a folder across the desk, similar to the one from 2 years ago, but thicker. This is yours if you want it. And before you say you're not qualified, remember that I wasn't qualified either when I started. None of us are. We just choose to show up and do the work anyway. Hannah opened the folder, her hands shaking. Director. Salary that would let her move Noah to a better school district. Resources to expand the foundation's reach. Power to help more families than she'd ever imagined. Why me, she whispered, the same question she'd asked 2 years ago. Because you passed the most important test of all, Lucas said. You became the person you needed when you were at your lowest. And now you can be that person for everyone else who's standing where you once stood. Hannah Cole was once a woman with nothing. Abandoned by her husband. Rejected by friends. Judged by strangers. Collapsing in the rain with a sick child and no hope left. Now she was the director of a foundation that helped thousands of families every year. A mother raising a son who knew that character mattered more than comfort. A woman who'd learned that the hardest tests often lead to the greatest blessings. She still thought about that day sometimes. The package that never existed. The choice that changed everything. What would you have done? Noah asked her once, years later, when she told him the story. If you knew it was a test? Would you have still said no? Hannah thought about it carefully. I think the point is that I didn't know. Real integrity is what you do when you think no one is watching. When you think it doesn't matter. When you could get away with the shortcut. She smiled at her son. So yes. I hope I would have said no anyway. Because that's who I want to be. That's who I want you to be. What if I fail the test someday? He asked quietly. Then you try again. And again. And again. Until you pass. She pulled him close. We're all just trying to pass the test, sweetheart. Every single day. The test of being human. Of being kind. Of doing right when wrong would be easier. Did you ever see Mr. Gray again? After he retired? Sometimes. He still comes to foundation events. Still mentors new directors. Still tests people, in his way. Hannah laughed softly. He told me once that I passed his test, but he's still testing me. Every day. Every decision. Life is the test, he said. And we're all taking it together. On the anniversary of that rainy day, Hannah returned to that street corner. It looked different now. Cleaner. They'd renovated the buildings, updated the shops. But she could still see the exact spot where she'd collapsed. Where she'd given up. Where a stranger had stopped and changed everything. She knelt down, touching the pavement. "Thank you," she whispered. To Lucas. To the universe. To whatever force had put her in that place at that time with that man. Thank you for the test. Thank you for the chance. Thank you for showing me who I could be when I thought I was nothing. A woman walked past, struggling with grocery bags, a toddler on her hip, exhaustion written in every line of her body. Hannah stood up. "Excuse me," she said gently. "Can I help you with those?" The woman looked at her suspiciously. "Why?" "Because someone helped me once. When I needed it. And they told me to pass it forward." Hannah smiled. "Please. Let me help." The woman's suspicion melted into relief. "Thank you. Thank you." Hannah carried her bags to her building, made sure she got inside safely, and slipped a business card into the woman's pocket before she left. "If you ever need help," she said. "Real help. Call that number. We're there." The story could end here. With Hannah successful, Noah thriving, Daniel gone, and everything tied up in a neat bow. But life doesn't really work that way, does it? The truth is, Hannah still struggled sometimes. Still had days when the fear came back, when she worried about money, when she wondered if she was good enough, smart enough, strong enough. The truth is, Noah still asked about his father occasionally, still had complicated feelings about abandonment, still needed reassurance that his mother wouldn't leave too. The truth is, the foundation faced funding challenges, political pressures, impossible cases where no amount of help seemed like enough. The truth is, life remained complicated and difficult and uncertain. But here's the other truth. Hannah had learned that she was stronger than her worst day. That character mattered more than circumstances. That the right choice wasn't always the easy choice, but it was always the choice she could live with. She'd learned that blessings came disguised as tests. That strangers could become saviors. That rock bottom was just the foundation you built your life on. She'd learned that you didn't have to be perfect. You just had to be trying. Choosing. Showing up. She'd learned that the woman who had nothing could become the woman who had everything that mattered. 5 years after that rainy day, Hannah received a letter. The return address was a hospice facility. The handwriting was shaky but familiar. Inside was a single page from Lucas Gray. "Dear Hannah. I'm writing this from a place I never expected to be, facing an end I knew would come but never quite believed in. The doctors say weeks, maybe days. I'm not afraid. I wanted you to know something. That rainy day when I found you on the street, that wasn't coincidence. I'd been looking for you. Well, not you specifically, but someone like you. I'd been driving through struggling neighborhoods for months, watching, waiting for someone whose desperation would reveal their character. I found dozens of desperate people. But you were the first one who, when offered a way out, chose integrity over survival. You were the answer I'd been searching for. The foundation will continue. You'll lead it well. Better than I ever did, because you understand suffering in a way I never could. But more than that, I wanted to thank you. For being exactly who you are. For proving that goodness exists even in the darkest moments. For showing me that my life's work mattered. You think I saved you that day. The truth is, you saved me. You restored my faith in humanity. In second chances. In the power of a single choice to change everything. Keep testing people, Hannah. Keep looking for character. Keep believing that who we are matters more than what we have. And when someone asks you why you do this work, tell them the truth, because someone did it for you. And they told you to pass it forward. With deep respect and gratitude, Lucas. Hannah read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. She went to the hospice that afternoon. Sat with Lucas for hours. Held his hand. Told him about every life the foundation had changed. Every family they'd saved. Every person who'd passed their own test. You did good, he whispered, his voice weak but steady. You did so good, Hannah. I learned from the best, she whispered back. He smiled. No. You already were the best. I just gave you a chance to prove it. He died 2 days later, peacefully, surrounded by the families he'd helped over the years. At his funeral, Hannah stood at the podium and looked out at hundreds of faces. People he'd tested. People who'd passed. People who'd become exactly who they needed to be. Lucas Gray taught me that life is a series of tests, she said. Tests we don't know we're taking until we've already passed or failed. Tests that reveal who we are when no one's watching. When we're desperate. When we're afraid. She paused, gathering herself. He taught me that the right choice isn't always rewarded immediately. That sometimes you choose integrity and you still suffer. Sometimes you do everything right and life still breaks you down. But he also taught me that those choices matter anyway. That who you are in the darkness defines who you'll be in the light. That the tests we pass when we think it doesn't matter are the ones that matter most. She looked down at the casket, at the man who'd changed everything. Thank you, Lucas. For testing me. For believing in me. For showing me that one choice can change a life. That one person can make a difference. That sometimes, the greatest blessings come disguised.